Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. Defense ties between the US and Greece are about to go deeper. Last week, Greece's parliament extended an agreement with the US that gives American troops greater access to its military bases. Greece's Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the pact would create a new reality. Mitsotakis echoed those remarks during his recent visit to Washington, where he met with President Joe Biden at the White House. He also gave a rare address to a joint session of Congress. Back in Athens, thousands marched against the defense deal, saying they didn't want a bigger U.S. presence. The pact comes amid Russia's continuing assault on Ukraine, where NATO countries have stood together in support of Kiev. But it also follows a tense year between Turkey and Greece over long-running disputes in the Aegean and East Mediterranean. So how will this extended defense deal affect Europe's security and the power balance in its southeast? And to answer that, joining me now from New York is Mark Marowitz. He is a professor at State University of New York Maritime College. And from Istanbul, Helin Sarı Ertem. She is an associate professor at Medeniyet University. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. Mark, Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis' speech to Congress, which was called historic by some circles, made indirect references to Turkey regarding overflights in the Aegean, a divided Cyprus, Eastern Mediterranean, and the possible sale of F-16s to Ankara. What do you make of his remarks?
Look, the Greek Prime Minister has a strong support in Congress. That's just one part of our government. We have a divided government. We have an executive branch, a president. We have the Congress. We have the courts. So he is making his argument, his pitch, to a very receptive crowd. On the other hand, the president has indicated what he wants to do in terms of the F-16s, that he wants that to go forward to Turkey and to replenish the equipment that is needed by Turkey. So what you basically have here is diplomacy being conducted on many different levels here in the United States, and also to make the point internationally. So the points that were made, and that's it. And so that was done for, as I said, a receptive audience.
You've mentioned how strong are the anti-Turkey lobbies in both houses, but how has his address been received by U.S. lawmakers in general?
Look, right now, the world, America, is completely fixated and absorbed with Ukraine. That is the main issue. We're still dealing with COVID pandemic. So yes, this is an important issue, but in terms of how it's received by legislators, it's on the list of things. It's one item on the list of many, many issues, the top issue of which is the Ukraine war and Russia's aggression in Ukraine. By the way, all of this that we're talking about today is in a sense a reverberation from Ukraine. Everything that the U.S. is doing in connection with Greece and Turkey is really a response to what's happening in Ukraine. I mean, that I think we can flesh it out, but that's really what's happening. Trying to balance this situation between Greece and Turkey and to kind of maintain that situation, promising F-35s to Greece, F-16s hopefully to Turkey.
So, Helin, what's your take on that? I mean, how is that going to help the Western alliance? Mark has been mentioning efforts to confront Russia amid the Ukraine crisis. I mean, will this move likely to drive a wedge between the NATO allies?
Well, actually, when we are talking about what made it possible for NATO to survive for more than 70 years, is actually there's a nice saying that NATO actually protects its allies towards each other. It's not protecting its allies from the outside threats, but its allies towards each other, which is a significant sign, because once again we are witnessing a deep crack in NATO relations, especially between Turkey and Greece. Unfortunately, Greece is again using this as a kind of opportunity. I mean, the Ukrainian crisis as a kind of opportunity, once again, to tell its thesis against Turkey to the NATO family, especially to the United States. So Mitsotakis' last move in Washington, in New York, is actually morely about Greece's existing stance against Turkey. We are neighbors, and I am one of those scholars who've been supporting friendly Turkish-Greek relations for all my life. But unfortunately, in every single opportunity, the Greek side is using any single crisis like the Ukraine crisis to somehow weaken Turkey's position in the international arena.
So, Mark, after Greek Prime Minister's remarks, President Erdogan has also called off a key meeting, the Strategic Council meeting between the two countries, saying that both leaders had agreed not to include third parties in their dispute. So, how is that going to impact the already fragile relations between Ankara and Athens?
Look, what's really happening here, just to pick up on this great conversation, is that this is a charm school for the United States. You have the defense minister of Turkey coming to the U.S., meeting with Secretary Blinken. You have Mitsotakis coming to the U.S., speaking to the Congress. The point here is to promote the interests of these countries, and the interest of the United States right now is to prevent any issues between the two countries, because, as I said before, the focus is on Ukraine. So in terms of, I think American policy has always been to facilitate good relations between these two countries, and that is a very complicated question. And it's been exacerbated by the militarization by the Greeks of the islands, and of course the Eastern Mediterranean trying to create a wedge against Turkey in terms of its ability to be able to have access to resources. These are all the issues that are out there. Yes. But for the United States right now, the main agenda is not allow these issues to go any further and to become more combative. That is the main issue, and they're doing it all around the world. Biden is calling a summit for North America. He is in Asia, visiting the Quad. He's talking to his allies in Asia, trying to facilitate that relationship and keep that whole situation stable. And it's also American foreign policy out there actively trying to, again, focus, I think, on the main problem, which is Russia, and also the other issue of China and Taiwan. Those are the big issues. Yes. These issues America does not want to escalate.
So, Helene, why do you think has the U.S. chosen to increase its military presence in Greece? I mean, what's the rationale behind this significant military support to Greece, as well as its, of course, increased access to land and naval bases?
Well, actually, this is a big discussion on the Turkish side, but I've been thinking that actually the United States is somehow trying to create a kind of substitute instead of Turkey. It's not giving up its stance with Turkey. It's not giving up Turkey as a significant ally in the region, but at the same time, the United States is creating alternative military bases, especially around Turkey in Western Black Sea region, especially in this Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece line. I don't think that this is a significant threat towards Turkey, but at the same time, Turkey is quite rightful to be offended with this escalation of military power of NATO, either NATO or the United States in the region, because we have a continuing tension with Greece.
Yes.
Because we have so many disputes in the Aegean Sea. So Turkey is somehow being put into a position of not being able to use any military opportunity against Greece, because Greece is taking a full US support, full NATO support behind it. The problem here is that the United States, for so many years during the Cold War, paid attention to keep a balance between Greece and Turkey. Unfortunately, especially since the Trump era, there's no balance in between Turkey and Greece in terms of the United States foreign policy.
Mark, what's your take on that? I mean, what kind of a balancing act is the U.S. striking between Turkey and Greece?
Well, first of all, if we go back to American foreign policy, we should talk about the Truman Doctrine, which was all about Greece and Turkey. But I think what's really happening here is the focus of attention is moving away from the Middle East, Syria, and so forth, right, with the Abraham Accords and so forth, to Europe and, of course, stabilize the situation in Ukraine in terms of Russia, and now the question of Sweden and Finland becoming part of NATO. That's the movement. Yes, it's true that Turkey was the key base for us, Incirlik and the other bases that the United States uses in Turkey. They're absolutely key and strategic. But in terms of where we are right now and the focus of where the world is, $40 billion package for Ukraine, this is what the focus is. U.S. focusing on trying to deal with that. So maybe the idea of putting the bases in Greece is maybe to move the direction of focus of military bases to more to Europe and to the area where America wants to prevent, Russian expansion. That's what it's all about. And if you remember the Truman Doctrine, it was all about Russian expansion and communist expansion and and overturning the governments in Greece and helping Greece and Turkey. So it's kind of like we're replaying part of it in a very new world. But the new world is the line that was crossed on February 24th when Russia invaded Ukraine. That changes everything. So I don't necessarily interpret, again, when we're looking at it from Turkey's point of view, it looks very different than we're looking at it from the U.S. point of view. Looking at it from the U.S. point of view, it's stabilizing and focusing on where the needs are in terms of having military support from the United States. That's what I think it's about, and not so much an act against Turkey. I don't see it that way from the American point of view, but certainly the Turkish point of view is going to be very, very different, obviously.
So continuing on that, Helen, earlier this year, Greece and France also signed a massive defense deal, which included a defense assistance clause providing for the immediate military assistance of France to Greece and vice versa in the event of an attack by a third country, even if that country is part of the NATO alliance. So is this latest move somewhat linked to this?
Well, it is, because we have Greece signing mutual agreements both with France and the United States, and both countries are providing, or at least promising to provide, military support to Greece if needed, if the threat is even coming from Turkey. So this is a complete sign of a lack of trust among the NATO allies. Yes. And that is the thing that Turkey has been refusing, because if there is no trust in between each other as allies, then there's no meaning of NATO.
All right, Helena and Mark, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.